With his request on Monday, Special Counsel Jack Smith put the justices in a contentious position with a former president who has made several attempts to politicize and exploit the federal judiciary. This lawsuit will put the U.S. Supreme Court to the test, as well as Smith's federal prosecution of Donald Trump for election interference. The justices were frequently agitated by disagreements on the policies of the Trump administration and his personal financial affairs. In addition to undermining the rule of law, Trump promoted conspiracy theories and launched personal assaults. When he lost a case, he hurled insults at Chief Justice John Roberts and the entire bench. Following the 2020 election, the court dismissed irrational allegations about Trump that may have thrown doubt on the outcomes that placed Joe Biden in the White House. In light of this, Smith, speaking for the U.S. government, has called on the justices, 6 of them conservatives and 3 of them liberals, to take up and assume prompt responsibility for resolving the following issue. Is a former president fully exempt from prosecution for crimes committed while in office? The Supreme Court's decision-making in this case will undoubtedly be widely watched from start to finish. According to public opinion polls, public support for the justices is at an all-time low as a result of the court's rulings that reverse long-standing traditions and entangle ethical issues. In order to grant the case immediately from a federal trial court, without going through the appellate process, 5 votes would be required, and it is inevitable that the justices will disagree on how urgent the issue is. Some people's relationships with Trump are different. 3 justices were appointed by him: Amy Coney Barrett, Brett Kavanaugh, and Neil Gorsuch. Clarence Thomas, the 4th, is associated with Trump because of the actions of his spouse, Ginny Thomas, who attempted to assist Trump in holding onto the president in 2020. Some Democrats have already begun to wonder if Thomas should take the case because of this. Dick Durbin, the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, said CNN that Thomas ought to think about stepping down in light of his wife's involvement in efforts to void the election results. Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut went a step farther and declared that Thomas ought to resign. Whether Trump's trial for election subversion that resulted in the January 6, 2021, uprising is concluded before votes are cast in a rematch between Trump and Biden later in 2024 may depend on the court's willingness to consider his claim of immunity. In order to allow the trial set for March 4 to proceed, Smith has presented a strong case for the justices' early involvement before a U.S. appellate court takes up the matter. It is impossible to overestimate the significance of the constitutional issues surrounding presidential immunity, and Smith has attempted to convince the justices to expedite the matter by citing the Supreme Court's 1974 Watergate decision and the maxim, "No person is above the law." In his petition, Smith stated that holding a president guilty of criminal activity for abusing the democratic process to stay in power would be the most important thing for our democracy. However, Trump has claimed that he enjoys complete immunity from prosecution under the Constitution. That unique claim is not supported by the text, structure, or history of the Constitution. Smith asked that the justices hear the matter, and late on Monday, the Supreme Court decided to expedite the submissions at this point, giving Trump's attorneys until 4 p.m. ET on December 20 to respond. Smith is deranged, according to a statement released by Trump's team, which also said that Smith is attempting a Hail Mary by racing to the Supreme Court and attempting to bypass the appellate process. Such statements are consistent with Trump's long-standing mockery of judges and other members of the justice system, which dates back at least to his 2016 presidential campaign, during which he attempted to discredit a U.S. District Court judge overseeing a case involving Trump University fraud as a Mexican judge. After winning the election, Trump persisted in criticizing judges at all judicial levels who disapproved of his actions. Following the Supreme Court's denial of a Republican attorney general's unsupported challenge to the election 2020 results, Trump posted on Twitter, saying, "The Supreme Court really let us down. No courage, no wisdom." Other actions taken by Trump, such as inviting the justices and their wives to a ceremonial swearing-in ceremony for Brett Kavanaugh in October 2018, weakened their independence. Justices were promised by White House advisors that the occasion would not be overtly political. However, as the justices positioned themselves awkwardly in front of the camera, it became an extremely politicized event.